I would love to hurt him and finish him and put him out.
How was he punching? Was it hurting
Like
you?
a son of, he punches like a mule kick. Unbelievable. Excuse my French, please. Oh, my God.
It's time!
You're listening to the Cage Nation TV Prizefight Podcast. Coming to you from the Coastal Cameron Studios in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Are you ready?
Here's your host, the big fella, Albert Cameron.
Let's get it on!
Welcome to the Prizefight Podcast. I'm your host, the big fella, Mr. Albert Miller, and it's a sincere joy to have you here with us week in and week out. We definitely love everything you guys have done for us. I had a really interesting weekend this Labor Day weekend. I got to do an AMA with Reddit, which was awesome and absolutely terrifying at the same time. I was talking about my time as a fight commentator, which, is something I thoroughly enjoyed doing, something that I'd absolutely love to make a career out of. So it was really cool to have folks kind of fire questions at me about what I've done. Again, I maintain the humble stance that what I do is of no substantial consequence. It's just that I get to exist in a fighter's universe, which is awesome all of in itself. So very, very big thanks to Reddit MMA for the AMA opportunity. It was huge. I love doing it. And, it would be really cool to do something like that again sometime. Coming up this week on the Prizefight Podcast, Alan Crowder signed to the UFC after appearing on the Dana White Contender Series. We're talking how cool it is for that man. We're also got some very strong evidence that the Dana White Contender Series and Fight Pass will be cannibalizing the Ultimate Fighter. You're going to definitely want to listen to that one. And also reminding you that Canelo Alvarez versus Triple G is the boxing fight we should have been talking about all along. But hey, who's counting? Who's keeping score? All that and more coming up right after the quick break. It's the Prizefight Podcast. Hey everyone, while we're taking a break, we just want to remind you that right now we are looking for new people to join the Cage Nation TV roster of creators. We're looking for creators who have a fight circuit close to home, who have a sincere passion for combat sports, and would like to help us bring new territories to the forefront of our coverage. For more information, visit www.cagenationtv.com/opportunity/pioneer or send us an email at cagenationtv@gmail.com. Weight cut management is one of the biggest hurdles that a combat athlete will endure as they prepare for competition. Our friend Sheena Lee believes wholeheartedly that Plexus is just the supplement that could give you the boost that you need for body weight management. Plexus is all natural, GMO-free, and gluten-free. One pink drink a day and you are off and running. Find out what Plexus can do for you by visiting facebook.com/slimdownfuelup or by sending Sheena an email at slimdownfuelup@gmail.com. Again, that is facebook.com/slimdownfuelup or slimdownfuelup@gmail.com. Get a hold of Sheena today and let's find out what science can do for your next weight cut. Okay, so first and foremost, we want to congratulate Alan Crowder, the pretty boy, Next Level Fight Club heavyweight champion. I'm sure he's going to be vacating that title before long. But Alan Crowder was just signed by the UFC in the heavyweight division after getting a TKO victory on Dana White's Contender Series. If that name, Alan Crowder, sounds a little bit familiar to you, well, it absolutely should. His victory over Coach Chase Gamble went absolutely viral. It was a slam that, for the first time in a long time, I was left speechless after being in attendance. Crowder goes on to fight for Bellator in his home state of North Carolina, and then the next thing you know, we're getting word that Crowder's going to be on Dana White's Contender Series. I waited with bated breath, and Crowder was able to pull out the victory. I said on the previous episodes of the Prizefight Podcast that the UFC heavyweight division was lacking. That's why I said that Stipe Miocic might actually be a viable opponent for Anthony Joshua. Joshua essentially ended the Klitschko era, or at least any hopes of the Klitschko era coming back. Stipe Miocic has no one left to fight. He's beaten everybody. The top 10 is just a list of guys that Miocic has been victorious against. My suggestion was that the UFC heavyweight division needed a little bit of fresh blood. They needed guys to kind of make things exciting. And then Alan Crowder does work on the Contender Series. Am I surprised? Absolutely not. If you'd see Alan Crowder fight, you know why he's victorious, because he puts in the work. You'd also see why he is incredibly marketable for the UFC. He is a sturdy heavyweight who's not tipping the scales at heavyweight. He's nimble, he's fast, he's strong. That's what's going to make a splash in the UFC heavyweight division. Now, on a regional, local level, the first time I saw Alan Crowder fight, I'm thinking, man, for heavyweight, he really reminds me of Andrei Arlovski. Now, I'm not making a direct comparison of Crowder to Arlovsky. I think that'd be incredibly unfair to do. The comparison I'm making is that Crowder competes at heavyweights against guys who may have more mass or more width to them, but Crowder's not afraid to compete. If you are just now listening to this episode of the Prizefight Podcast, and you didn't listen to my coverage of Next Level Fight Club 6, allow me to regale you with a story that should really tell you the legend of Alan Crowder. Alan Crowder was scheduled to fight Richard White. Richard White is a Bellator veteran, fights out of Florida. Richard White came to North Carolina incredibly overweight. I'm not saying that he's obese. I'm saying he could not make the 265 limit when it came time to weigh in. Crowder was like, you know what? I'll fight him. I will fight the guy. White came in, weighed in over 300 pounds. Crowder was willing to give up, I think, like 70-some pounds. It was something ridiculous. Something absolutely ridiculous. He was ready to compete. And Crowder had to take an opponent that he wasn't able to prepare against. I take that back. He didn't have to take an opponent. He did it because he wanted to compete. In my mind, that kind of stuff is legendary. And I talked about that opponent that night, Coach Chase Gamble, and about how legendary I thought that approach was. The UFC needs guys who are willing to go in there and willing to fight. They need guys who are just super excited, who have the hunger, who have the drive, who have the eye of the tiger, willing to go in there and compete at heavyweight. I think you are going to be very, very, very impressed with Alan Crowder once you see him get his first fight at heavyweight. Likely to be a UFC fight night on Fight Pass. But hey, don't take it from me. Do yourselves a favor. You can sign up for a weekly subscription. Not a weekly, but a week trial of UFC Fight Pass. You're going to see what the modern heavyweight looks like. Now, I don't want to put too much pressure on Alan Crowder. He is only human after all. But performance is what talks. I can sit here and talk about Alan Crowder all day. But what I'm telling you is go out and check out his fights. Performance is what makes the statement. Alan Crowder liberated a man from the confines of gravity and sent him crashing back down to earth, and then ended a fight. Alan Crowder went to the octagon, and he performed. He was able to stop the fight. Those are the kind of things that get you into the UFC. Mark Cherico. No doubt in my mind that guy is destined for the UFC. He fought on Dana White's Contender Series. The fight didn't go his way. But the true sign of a champion is you getting knocked down 7 times and getting up 8. Whatever Mark Cherico decides to do, that, is on him, and I'm sure he's going to manage his life and career wisely. Mark Cherico has a beautiful family, as does Alan Crowder. I'm telling you these stories about the UFC Fight Pass because I had a revelation. I kind of touched upon it a couple weeks ago, but I really think that the UFC Fight Pass and the Dana White Contender Series, I think it might end up spelling the end for the Ultimate Fighter. Let's consider what goes into the Ultimate Fighter. You have to house about, 16 folks. So you have to pay for the house. You have to pay for the production, the camera crew. You have to pay for venue rentals. I mean, I know that they own the Ultimate Fighter gym, but the cost, the overhead of keeping that open. Then you have to pay for folks to edit. You have to pay for folks to do this, that, and the other. If you consider the costs of having the Dana White Contender Series, which is exclusive to Fight Pass. So consider this. You have your brother who's fighting on the Dana White Contender Series. Are you going to lay down the money to watch the Dana White Contender Series on Fight Pass? Even if you get the weekly trial, you're going to see how much cool stuff is on Fight Pass, and you are more likely to subscribe. The Dana White Contender Series on the Fight Pass format is an income producer. It is a direct line of cash straight to the UFC's pocket, whereas the Ultimate Fighter has a lot of overhead. There's a TV deal that can be considered. The network has taken a chunk of that income. And then when the UFC sells ad space for the Dana White Contender Series, that is more straight line income going straight into the pocket of the UFC. Now, let me ask you. You are a business person, and you're saying, okay, well, I could host a reality TV show, which is pretty entertaining to watch, or I could do another show where people are going to pay me to watch it, because that's essentially what's happening. With the UFC Fight Pass and the Dana White Contender Series, people are paying money to watch their friends fight on Fight Pass. So you have the Dana White Contender Series where people are paying me to watch the fight, or we have the Ultimate Fighter on cable, which is cool to watch, but it is not a direct income producer. You see where I'm getting at. I really think that the UFC is going to end up leaning more towards the Dana White Contender Series, especially with the new regime in place. With WNG, IMG having recently plunked down how much? $4 billion to purchase the UFC, they're going to want to recover those costs quickly. They've already kind of limited how many free tickets people are getting to get into the show. They're already dumping unnecessary executives. They're already dumping, the guys who got fluff jobs with the UFC, guys like Chuck Liddell and Matt Hughes, which Matt Hughes is making a fantastic recovery from what I'm told. We're still sending a lot of positive energy and healing prayers to Matt Hughes and his family. But the UFC gets rid of guys like that who are just taking up office space. And so they are trying to cut costs immediately. So let's consider this from now the WMG IMG perspective. We have a show that has money coming directly into my pocket, or a show that we kind of have to pay a little bit of overhead for, and we kind of have to hope for Dana Nielsen ratings to make it pay off. Y'all do the math on that one. These are the signs written on the wall that makes me believe that the UFC is going to end up allowing the Dana White Contender Series to cannibalize the Ultimate Fighter. And with the Ultimate Fighter, okay, consider this. The Ultimate Fighter, they have to pay coaches to appear, right? They have to pay for guys like Cody Garbrandt, for Uriah Faber, for Dominic Cruz, for Chuck Liddell, for Randy Couture, for Forrest Griffin, Tito Ortiz, Rashad Evans, Quentin Rampage Jackson. They have to pay those guys because they're not going to show up for free. They're not going to show up and be like, okay, here's my name. I want to help the youth. I mean, the cause is noble. But if you're considering that fighting is your direct source of income and you're taking time away from fighting to appear on a TV show, you're going to want paid. You are going to want paid. So let's say that the guys on the Dana White Contender Series are getting paid for fighting. That being paid for fighting is not nearly what they're paying in overhead for the Ultimate Fighter. What if you have incidences like Chris Lieben walking through a house and just beating the snot of the house, punching through glass, beating up a door? You have to pay for those things. You have to pay for those things. That damage is not free. And then, to pay the guy to drive the van to take Chris Lieben to the hospital, to bring him back, the hospital bills, because I'm sure the UFC paid for that, the hospital bills, whereas the only medical expenses that the UFC might have to incur with the Dana White Contender Series is, medical expenses of injury happening during the fight. Whereas if a fight happens during training, well, that's really on the independent contractor athlete to have to take care of. This is all business, folks. This is economics. So ask yourselves, are you going to be a part of the show that's going to pay you, or pay for a show that's really entertaining, that has done a lot for the sport of mixed martial arts? And we need to take the nostalgia out of it. The nostalgia is, yes, Griffin versus Bonner was the single most important fight of all of mixed martial arts. If it had not been for that first season of The Ultimate Fighter, MMA as we know it, the UFC as we know it, would not exist the way that it does now. It's just the long and the short of it. It would not exist the way it does now. So if I were a smart man, and I'm not always accused of being that, but if I were a smart man, I would probably lay my money down on the Dana White Contender Series on Fight Pass, ultimately cannibalizing the Ultimate Fighter. The UFC has these vehicles in place to try to find new talent. The UFC has several different farm leagues. I'm sure the guys who are allowing their fights to be on Fight Pass, I'm talking about Pancrase, Alaska Fighting Championship, TKO, Cage Rage, Glory Kickboxing. I'm sure if Dana White came knocking saying, hey, I need some fighters, help me out, I'm sure they're going to play ball. It's in their best interest to play ball. But the long and the short of it is that Dana White Contender Series is likely going to take over for the Ultimate Fighter because it is the most cost-effective way to accomplish the same goal. That's just how it is. Now, listen up, North Carolina. You're kind of wondering, wow, well, the UFC is signing guys from our regional circuit. What do we do? Should we be scared? Should we panic? Well, no, you shouldn't panic. I've seen this before. The UFC has already raided places I've been. The UFC signed a guy from Altoona. That was Charlie the Spaniard Brenneman. They've signed guys from Pittsburgh. Chris Dempsey. Bellator's even getting involved in it. They signed Dominic Mazzata. Bellator is coming to Penn State University, where I lived for 10 years, and yes, I am only slightly pissed off about that they waited until I moved to the great state of North Carolina to decide to go, oh, hey, the big fella's gone. Tons of fun has left the state. Let's get our happy asses up to Penn State and let's promote a fight. Really? That's how you're going to play me here? I mean, there are a handful of people who have done a lot of work to bring MMA to Pennsylvania, and I feel like I have to take it personal. Not really personal. I mean, that's just life. That's business. I am very proud to have lived in an area where MMA and big stage MMA feels that it's viable to be there. That is awesome, and I'm very, very happy for everyone. In fact, when Bellator was doing their media day stuff for Ed Ruth and Phil Davis, they actually did some media day shots at Central PA Mixed Martial Arts, where I studied jiu-jitsu for a very short breath, I'll say. They were all over places that I immediately recognized, and I did feel a big sense of pride. I'm very, very proud of that area that combat sports is going to come there. And that is awesome. I'm very, very happy. And, my heart's there, of course. My heart is definitely there. So, who knows? Who knows? I'm trying to get Rob Lynn out there to cover Bellator. And, you never know. Maybe the fortunes will smile upon me that I can make it home for that weekend to check out Bellator. We're putting things to work. We'll never know. We'll have to wait till we get there. The fight that I am so sick of talking about, and I think you know which fight I am talking about, Mayback, is finally over. And now it's time to get excited about something really, really cool. Let's get excited. Well, okay, before I start talking about that fight, kind of rounding back, North Carolina, the UFC is rating our talent. What do we do? No, we need to be happy about that, because when the UFC shines attention on your scene, on your circuit, it only benefits everybody. So after Chris Dempsey was signed by the UFC, MMA Pittsburgh really, really kind of blew up. I mean, there was a lot of attention, and it was in the post Dempsey Pittsburgh. Though I saw some of the absolutely incredible fights. Iron City Mike Wilkins really kind of blew up. Rob Hanna came to challenge Dominic Mazzata. Mark Cherico had some of the best fights I think he's had. Pinnacle FC and Gladiators of the Cage both did incredibly well. And now that Mazzata signed to Bellator, that's really cool. I would love to see him fight on the Penn State card. I think that would be really something to see. Ethan the Wolverine Glass is pitching really hard to fight on that Bellator card. And, I think the Wolverine would do incredibly well for Bellator. I think he is certainly deserving of that shot. So, whatever we can do to get Ethan Goss on the Bellator card, I think would be awesome. If the UFC comes and starts plucking guys, and I mean, there are a lot of guys in the Raleigh-Wilmington area that I think would absolutely be UFC worthy. I mean, I got my eye on Chris Hurd. Chris Hurd is trained by UFC middleweight Derek Brunson, and Chris Hurd is going to be making some serious waves soon. He's only an amateur right now, but don't take your eye off him. Damon Blackshear, I think, is another name that's going to be picked up really soon. Elias Briley, and I'm not sure why that name sticks out to me so much, but he was a kid who had a big impression on me. So, don't freak out, North Carolina. It's okay. We're going to be fine. North Carolina has a very good heavyweight scene, so we're going to cultivate that heavyweight scene. I know that guys like Next Level Fight Club and Battle in the South, I know they're working on finding the next generation of regional heavyweights. Don't worry. We're going to be fine. The UFC plucking from our talent pool only works out better in our favor, because after the UFC signs guys like Alan Crowder, where do you think they're looking next? The same promotions that Alan Crowder came from. So, go out to these regional fights. I've told you guys over and over again, hey guys, go to regional fights because they pay off. Regional fights because these fights have big implications. Am I repeating myself? Have I said this before? Is it deja vu? I'm going to ask my cat real quick. Hey kitty, is it deja vu? Have I told people to go to regional fights before because that's where guys are signed from? Have I said that before? He agreed. He doesn't speak a whole lot on the microphone because he's nervous. He's got stage fright. But he admits that, yes, I tell you guys this time and time again. I told you this whenever Chris Dempsey got signed, when Dominic Mazzata got signed, when Cody Garbrandt got signed. Because Cody Garbrandt fought in Pittsburgh before he went out to fight that one fight in California. And then, boom, he's a UFC guy. Before Mazzata got signed to Bellator. Before Alan Crowder got signed to the UFC. I told you guys, go out to these regional fights, you will not be sorry. The guys who were ringside with me, guys and girls who are ringside with me, are saying, hey, I saw Alan Crowder whenever he stopped Coach Chase Gamble. I saw that. I was there. And whenever Alan Crowder does his big moves in the UFC, we're going to be able to say, hey, I saw Alan Crowder fight regionally. Whenever I was able to approach him at the doors of the Kerr Scott building, I got my picture taken with Alan Crowder. What a really nice guy. I knew him when. It seems to be a badge of honor among sports fans that they get to say, hey, I saw that guy. I knew him fight before anyone else did. And there's only one way to really do that. And I harp on it a lot because it's true. There's only one way to be the guy in the know who knows about the big talent before they hit the big stage, and that's to go to local and regional shows. Let me say it again because sometimes I don't think y'all listen to me. The only way to know who the next big thing is to go to local and regional shows. That's how you discover who the next big name is. That's how you get yourself in the conversation of, hey, I heard Jimmy knew about Alan Crowder before Alan Crowder was signed to the UFC. How did Jimmy know? Jimmy listened to the Prizefight podcast. He said, hey, I should probably go to the Next Level Fight Club. And guess what? He knew about Alan Crowder before the UFC did. I feel better now. I feel good. And I'm hoping y'all are going to listen to me the next time I'm covering a local fight card. And you're going to say, hey, big fella, I should probably listen to you and go to that fight card. Yes, you should. You should definitely do that. In fact, next week, we're going to be talking about Next Level Fight Club 8 going down September 16th at the Kerr Scott Building in Raleigh, North Carolina, where there are some big fights happening already. Hannah Cyphers, Coach Chase Gamble. We're going to be talking about all that. So now that you've heard this, be tuning into the Prizefight Podcast next week when I'm telling you about these local fighters that could be heading for the UFC. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I've called it a few times. And it's not me because I'm excellent. It's because I go to these local fights and I see guys doing hard work. It's real easy to tell who's going to make it to the UFC. It's the guys who produce results. The guys who do the work. It has nothing to do with what I say about them. I'm inconsequential. I am lucky enough to exist in a fighter's universe, but I have no bearing on who's getting signed. I know these things because I go to local fights, I see the guys with the impressive finishes, the guys who clearly do the work, the guys who get results. That is my secret. That is how you tell who's getting signed to the next big thing. I'm going to close out the Prizefight Podcast today by talking about not really getting in depth, but a fight we should all be getting excited about. Maymac happened. Yay, it's over. McGregor won. Everyone's surprised. But Canelo Alvarez versus Triple G. Alvarez versus Triple G is coming up, I think, September 16th. Yes. But the point of that story is that's the boxing fight you guys should be excited about. And if you're listening, what is the big fella going to do? Well, the big fella is going to be in attendance at Next Level Fight Club 8. But as far as boxing goes, I'm super excited about Canelo Alvarez versus Triple G. I've been excited about boxing ever since I was at the Azalea Festival tournament in Wilmington, North Carolina this past April. And I'm trying to get Pennsylvania guys to come down here for the Azalea Festival because it is just that big of a deal. Again, tune in next week to the Prizefight Podcast where we're going to be talking about Next Level Fight Club 8 going down at the Kerr Scott Building. Little Birdie told me tickets are available right now at www.nextlevelfightclub.com. Again, that is www.nextlevelfightclub.com. We're going to be talking about Coach Chase Gamble, Hannah Cyphers, and more on the Prizefight Podcast. Until next time, everybody, fights, Cameron, action.
Thank you for tuning in to the Cage Nation Prizefight Podcast. All rights reserved 2016 to 2017 Planet Aries Sports. The Prizefight Podcast is part of the Cage Nation Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.cagenationtv.com.